DreAllDay.com.
Tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is, go get an energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to try your best. Before we get into this, I remind you all of two things specifically. First of all, my daily motivation, Monday motivation text line, numbers down below in the description. When we start sending it out again, you'll be getting a message straight to your phone. You'll get more details when we start sending those out again, but just text me now so we got your information. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That is a place where I do all my coaching. You want to get access to all of our trainings, all of our courses, all of our future materials, and access to me as your direct coach. Just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can get more information and take your next steps from there. Getting into the topic, how to try your best. Now, everybody's familiar with the term. All of us have heard the term trying your best. And I want to make sure I try my best, or I feel like I did try my best, or maybe you say you didn't try your best. We all know the term. We have all used it. We've all had it used on us. And hopefully we are actually doing it. And today I'm going to lay out what it actually looks like and what it actually feels like to indeed try your best so that you are now positioned and empowered to hold yourself accountable and see if you are actually doing it. Because we talk about it, but are we actually doing it? Those are two different things. I think many of us are going to find, as I have even in laying these points out myself and now articulating them to you, that we are often guilty of not trying our best. But as we get into these points, we will all find out. We're all going to get really clear on if we're trying our best or if we're not. So let's get into it. Point number one, topic once again is how to try your best. Number one, you must determine what your best looks like. What is your best? If you were doing your best, what exactly does that look like? In short, you need a baseline. What is the baseline for you doing your best? What does it look like when you are actually at that level? I'll give you a hint and let you know that it's not the way that you are probably operating on a day-by-day, moment-by-moment basis. That's not your best. But you do know what your best looks like, and I'm going to tell you how in a second. First of all, let's understand something. Human beings, that's me and you, we are lazy by nature. When left to our own devices, we tend to move slower than we need to. Slower than we could is a better way of saying it. We have less focus than we should, and many people are usually willing to admit that. And we tend to not press our feet as hard on the gas pedal as we could be if we were actively and consciously reminding ourselves to do so, or we were actively and consciously being reminded to do so. In other words, we don't go as hard or as fast or stay as focused or as disciplined as we could, should, or would be if it was something that was consciously top of mind and or something or someone was consciously reminding us on a consistent basis to do these things. So what happens is we get into our comfort zone of operation, which for some of you is actually a relatively pretty fast pace, and for many of you is a relatively slow pace. Whatever it is for any of us, even if your normal level is a pretty fast pace, you could always go faster. You could always be more focused. You could always be more disciplined. None of us is always giving our best. None of us is always giving our best. And if you say that you are absolutely lying. I don't even have to know you. So this is a reflection. What I'm explaining here is a reflection of the law of inertia. So the reason I'm able to assert that none of us is always giving our best, because the law of inertia states that an object in motion stays in motion, object not in motion stays not in motion until or unless acted upon by an outside force. And if you listen to the show regularly, you hear me mention inertia often. Human beings, we tend to get into habits of behavior that fit within our comfort zones of performance. Our comfort zone is usually not as fast as we could possibly go, because if we're going as fast as we could possibly go, well, guess what? That ain't comfortable. Human beings operate within a comfort zone. Now, the difference between one person and the next can be significant still, because my comfort zone and your comfort zone do not necessarily have to be the same thing. So if you're a person who goes to the gym and lifts weights all the time, your comfort zone might be bench pressing 300 pounds. That's normal to you. You do that as a warm up. Whereas someone who doesn't lift weights at all, if you ask them to bench press 300 pounds, you're sentencing them to death, because as soon as the spotter lets go of that bar, is going to fall on their chest and cave their chest in, or fall on their face and kill them. So you have two different levels of comfort zones. The same thing if someone's used to running a 7-minute mile, another person never runs at all, you are setting them up to have a heart attack if they try to run that fast for any more than half a block. So we all have different levels of comfort zone. But just because your level of comfort zone is higher than the next person's level of comfort zone does not mean you are doing your best. Remember the title of today's episode, How to Try Your Best, not to be better than the people around you. This is why the law of association matters so much, because you become the average of the people you spend the most time with. Therefore, those of you who hang around a bunch of bums and you're the best amongst them, you may be doing pretty well compared to them, but are you doing pretty well compared to your best potential? See, those are two different things. And the challenge is when you're hanging around people who are lower level than you don't even have anything reflecting to you that your potential could be higher, because everybody around you, you're already better than them, which may lull you into sleep, into thinking that you're doing pretty well because you're doing better than all the people around you. But the people around you are fucking bums. So you don't even know how good you could be because you don't have anyone showing you that you could be better, because nobody's better than you. So this is why all of you need to be very careful about with whom you associate. I told you a story a few days ago about when I was playing pickup basketball at St. Francis College, which was not far from the school that I went to, which was Penn State Altoona, as a college basketball player the last year before I went on to play professional basketball. And my teammate Wes Pfeiffer was the one who knew somebody over there, and that's how we ended up going and playing with those guys. Now I played basketball at a Division III college. St. Francis was a Division I college. Now we had played, me and my teammate Wes Pfeiffer, we were two guys on the team who really did like to work on our games. We would come to the gym on our own volition and practice, which none of our other teammates ever did unless they were encouraged by one of us to go do it. So we connected on that level basketball wise, and we would go look for other places to play pickup, because the players on our campus, if we only compared ourselves to them, well, we would be lulled to sleep into thinking that we were the greatest things in the world, because the teammates that we played with, it's not that none of them had any game whatsoever. Most of them were not very talented. I mean, some of them were adequate, but they weren't all very talented. None of them were ambitious about basketball, as evidenced by what I just told you, that none of them ever came to the gym to practice by themselves. But at the same time, we never talked about this directly, but I think we both understood it, that if we only played against those guys, we might just think that we're good enough and we don't need to do anything else to work on our games because we're better than these guys. But those guys weren't the guys that we would be playing against if we were able to make it to the next level, which is why we went looking for other competition. And this is the same thing you need to be doing in your life. That's the reason why the law of association is the law of association. You only associate with people who you are already better than. You might just think that you're the shit because you're hanging around a bunch of people who ain't on your level. But the people you're hanging around might just be garbage. So what about that? What does that say about you? You're hanging around a bunch of garbage people, so now you think you're good? That's a bad formula. So you got to be very careful of these things, folks. So our comfort zone, again, is usually not us doing as best as we possibly can, because we're usually not consciously being pushed to do our best, unless you are consciously reminding yourself, which is one way to do it. And the easier way to do it is to be in an environment where you have no choice but to push at your best, because if you don't, you're going to get ran over and you will not even survive in that space. This is why people who play the game at a higher level, whatever game at a higher level, are usually associating consistently with people who are playing the game at a higher level than they are. So they're always looking to level up in their relationships, connections, etc., and professionally and personally. So going as fast as we possibly can, being completely focused, not wasting a second. Let me ask you a question. How many of you did that for the last 24 hours? Like, nobody should be saying me. Nobody's doing that, unless you happen to be in an environment where you're forced to do it. Now, maybe one or two of you might be in an environment right now, usually temporarily, where you are forced to do that, but you're not going to stay in that environment. The question is, what do you do when you get out of there? Let's continue. We're still on point number one. I doubt there are any human beings on the planet who do what I just asked without constantly thinking about it. What I just said, going as fast as you can, being completely focused and not wasting even 1 second of your time. Do you think there are any humans on the planet who do this all the time without it being a conscious thought? Meaning this is just their default mode? No. Maybe some animals, maybe like ants or something, they do it, but humans, no. Most of our thoughts and actions are unconscious. We all know this. These are also known as our habits. I know that all of us can hold ourselves accountable to moving a little bit faster. Again, if you're thinking about it, trying a little bit harder, if you're thinking about it, doing a little bit extra to really find out what our best looks like. For an example of what your best is, think of one of your greatest achievements in life, thing that you are really proud of, and then what you did in order to achieve it. Now ask yourself, how often are you giving that level of effort to anything that you do today? Now, when you notice a discrepancy between the two, all right, now you can see the difference. Now that's proof right there that you're not always giving your best. Point number two. Today's topic, once again, is how to try your best. Number two, stop searching for and seeking comfort. We just talked a lot about the comfort zone in the first point. The key to doing your best is you can't be comfortable. To do your best, you're not going to be comfortable. You can't have both at the same time. You can't do your best and be comfortable at the same time. So you got to pick one. It's not going to be fun, and then the process is not going to be easy. But the outcome will make you more comfortable once you achieve the outcome, and you will have fun enjoying the result of giving your best, and it will probably make the rest of your life relatively easier because you have achieved the outcome. So once you achieve the outcome, it will be more fun, it will be more easy, it will be more comfortable because the results of it make everything else in your life easier. But the life of always being comfortable and always staying in your comfort zone are going to actually, in the long run, make things harder. So, as they say, success is hard on the front end and easy on the back end, whereas failure and mediocrity are easy on the front end and hard on the back end. What that means is when you're successful, you do a whole bunch of hard stuff up front so you can relax later on. And when you're mediocre or a failure, you do all the easy stuff up front, i.e., relaxing. And now you got to make up for all the time you wasted later on. You're better off doing hard work in your youth in the early parts of any situation, a life, a career, a job, a task, etc., because you usually have more energy at the beginning than you have at the end. And you can apply that in all aspects of life and to life itself. You have more energy when you're 25 than you're going to have when you're 65. So you're better off working really hard when you're 25, when you have the energy to do so, than when you're 65 and you don't really have the energy to do so, but you still need to do it, but you can't do it because you don't have the energy. That sounds like a problem to me. What about you? So you don't want to be in a position where you need a lot of energy to do hard work, but you don't have any. So any of you who's 25 or 36 or 42 or 15, you need to work as hard as you can right now so that you don't need to call on that effort later on. It doesn't really matter what age you are. You can be 55 and it still applies to you because you got more energy now at 55 than you're going to have at 65, 75, 85. All right, so you might as well do the work now. So the outcome will make you more comfortable. You will have fun enjoying it, and you'll probably make your life, again, as I said, relatively easier because you have achieved the outcome. Now, one thing about achieving at a higher level than your baseline is that there will be higher expectations on you once you do it. But those higher expectations come with higher levels of rewards at the same time. So when I say easier, I don't mean across the board. I don't mean everything's going to be easier because you got to that higher level. In some ways, your life's going to be harder because you now have a new standard to live up to. But if you want to do your best, you should understand that it is not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be easy. So any of you who's ever done any type of exercise, fitness, or sports competition, you know what it feels like when you are being pushed harder than you're used to pushing yourself by, let's say, a trainer, a coach, or if you're in the midst of a competition. You know what that feels like when you're in there. Now ask yourself again, how often are you pushing yourself to that level when you're by yourself? Now, again, this is what I'm referring to. How often does that happen? Now, I'm not saying this to condemn you. I'm saying it just to give yourself a comparison between your normal mode of behavior and these levels that you've seen before in your life, because all of you have experienced this. So you know there's a difference between one and the other. All right, that's what I'm trying to make sure you get. Moving on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to try your best. Number 3, understanding when you do try your best, when you finally get around to doing so, you often end up getting exactly what you were angling for, whatever you were aiming for. Which means if you don't get what you were angling for, unless it was an act of God that intervened, you did not try your best. You probably didn't try the best that you could. Now, I'm not saying you didn't try at all, but you didn't try the best that you could. So there's not trying at all, doing nothing. There's trying, but not your best. And then there's your best, which is at the far end of it. So it's kind of like the bell curve. This is a hard pill to swallow for some people because it requires you to look in the mirror and hold yourself accountable to the reality that maybe there is something that you could have given that you did not give. And it may not be obvious to you from the beginning. That's the reason why you need other high level people around you, such as a coach, other high level performers, people who are better than you, because they can point out to you or demonstrate to you what they're doing that you ain't doing, or they can just tell you, hey, what you're not doing that you could have done that would have maybe taken you to a higher level. I find that it's easier for men, as a general rule. Men generally accept this point more readily than a woman does, in my experience, because men tend to lean more logical and less emotional to points like this one, when I give points like this, and they tend to accept it more readily than a woman does. I'm not saying a woman can't accept this point, and I'm not saying that there aren't some men who think mentally like women, and there are some men who have much more masculine mind frames in conversation. But I'm saying as a general rule, when you go after something and do not get it, the more responsibility and accountability will be put on you for having not gotten it, and the more power, because of that responsibility and accountability, the more power you now have to alter the situation and try again so you don't come up short the next time. But you have to accept the ownership in order to get the power. To get the power, you got to accept the ownership. Those are the trade-offs. If, on the other hand, you tell yourself that you have tried your best, but you still haven't achieved the outcome, well, you have a big problem. The problem is that it will be impossible for you to ever achieve the outcome. Because if I say I tried my best, but I still didn't get the outcome, that means there's no way I can get the outcome because I tried my best. That means I can't try any harder. I can't try any better. I can't improve in any way, but I still didn't get the outcome. That must mean that I must accept that there's no way I'll ever achieve this outcome because my best effort isn't enough to get it. Now, I don't think any of you want to accept that as a reality. Therefore, anything you have tried or in the process of trying to get, but you haven't yet achieved it, you need to accept that maybe there's a higher level of effort that you could give. There's a higher level of production you could get to. There's a higher level of performance you could ascend to. But if you're not willing to accept that, then there's no way that anything can change here. Nothing can be fixed. So are you willing to accept that you can't have the thing that you want? Or are you willing to accept that maybe there's something else you could have done, some level that you can get to, some resource that you haven't yet accessed or used that could help solve the problem that you have yet to solve? And that's an open question. If you are a listener to this show, or just to my work in general, I'm going to guess that your answer is you're not going to accept that you've given your best if you have not yet achieved your outcome, because that would mean the outcome can't ever happen. So when you go back to the mirror and figure out what you did not do or where you messed up that led to you achieving or not achieving the outcome that you wanted. But you got to start in the mirror. We start in the mirror, we end in the mirror. What that means is whatever the situation is, you first have to take ownership of it, and whatever resolution is come to and the actions that are going to be taken, they start with the person in the mirror. Why? Because the person in the mirror is the only person you can control. You can influence, persuade, ask, and hope for help from people outside of the mirror, people out the window. That's everybody else, the externalities, but you cannot control them and you can't always depend on them. And listen, they got their own problems. They got their own lives. They have their own priorities, and their priority is probably not you, unless you are the child of that person. If you're talking about your mom or dad, you might be a priority up until maybe age 18. After that, you're no other human being's priority aside from your own. So that's why we start in the mirror and we end in the mirror, because the mirror is the thing that you can control. So that's the mental toughness. This is the self-accountability. This is the personal ownership that gives you the power to go and get the outcomes you want and get the results that you want to have in your life. But you cannot get power if you're not willing to take ownership, responsibility, and accountability, which means everything that is happening around you may not be your fault, but you are responsible for doing something about it. Are you willing to do that? If you're not, that's okay. Just understand the trade-off of not being willing to do that is that you should also accept that you're not going to get the things that you want in life, unless somebody happens to hand them to you. And I wouldn't base my success on expectations of charity. I would base it on things I can go out and actually do myself that I control. But that's just me. I'm just telling you the way I look at it. You tell me how you look at it through your actions, not through your words. Let's recap today's class, which is how to try your best. Everybody's familiar with the term, so let's get clear on what trying your best actually looks and feels like. Number one, you have to determine what your best looks like. You need a baseline of what your best is. The way that we operate on a day-by-day basis is usually not our best unless one of two things: either A, you are constantly thinking about yourself at every single moment, give your best, give your best, give your best. Nobody does that all day long. You may do it for a moment or two, but you don't do it all day, because that would be mentally exhausting to have to constantly think about what we're doing. Most of the things we do are on mental autopilot. So most of you are not doing that. Or the other option of you always doing your best is if you're in an environment where you're being pushed by your peers, associates, or whoever is around you to give what is absolutely your best because you have no other choice. That means you're in a certain type of environment with higher level people. Maybe you have a coach or a trainer or a drill sergeant breathing down your neck and making you do things that you otherwise wouldn't do. Other than that, we operate by our normal habitual cruise control levels, which again, for some people can be a higher level. For other people, it's a lower level. Other people, it's the lowest possible level. But the baseline for each one of us is a certain comfort zone level, which means we can all perform at a higher level than what we normally do, regardless of how your normal compares to other people's normal. That's not the question here. Number two, stop searching for comfort. You want to perform at your highest level, you're not going to be comfortable. But interestingly enough, when you perform at your highest level consistently enough, everything in your life becomes more comfortable. You have more success, you have more options, you have more friends, you got more things you can do, you got more things you are capable of because you're performing at your best as often as possible and pushing yourself to do so. So the discomfort you're willing to endure leads to a whole lot of comfort on the back end. Whereas if you flip that around, the comfort that you choose to partake in now is going to lead to a whole lot of discomfort in the future. And there's only one or the other. This is a binary. You just choose which angle you want to take it from. You want to do it now, you want to do it later. Point number three, understand that when you do try your best, you often get exactly what you are angling for. In other words, the thing you're trying to get by trying your best, you usually end up getting it. So if you end up not getting the thing that you wanted, you probably have not tried your best, which means maybe there's something you didn't know. Maybe there's something that you did that you shouldn't have done. Maybe there's something you did not do. Maybe there's some resource that you have not accessed or used. But as long as you're willing to accept that there's something missing from my equation, your end of the equation, then that means you still have the potential to get what you want, because clearly your best effort wasn't there yet because there was something missing. Maybe you just didn't know about it. Maybe you forgot. Doesn't matter the reason. The point being, if you get to the point and you say, I have tried my best, yet you still don't have your outcome, that means you need to reconcile the reality that you'll never get the thing that you want because your best wasn't good enough. If you're okay with that, I'm okay with it too. But if you're not okay with it, then good, we can do something about it. Speaking of doing something about it, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. Have me as your coach, and let's get to work on figuring out what is missing so we can get you to where you want to be sooner rather than later while you still have time. Work on your game. Dre, all